welcome to Exploring the Illusion of Free Will. My name is George Ortega, and today's episode is episode number 114. Different definitions of free will, different refutations. My co-host Enel was supposed to be here, but he lives in Manhattan, and we're expecting snow, and so he's not here. And so he'll be here, I don't know, in a couple weeks. All right, whatever. All right, so let's get on with the show. First, I want to, actually, since this whole show, ordinarily I just describe what we mean by free will and then refute it and then say what's important by it. But because this whole show is about that, and I've done several other shows with the same theme, I'm just going to go through the different definitions and refute them in turn. Okay, but first I want to just explain why this show is important. The Big Bang, nature, God, you call it whatever you will, compelled us to be completely deluded about who we are as human beings. Why the universe would have us so deluded about this, I have no idea. How could you know? But that's the case. I mean, it's not the first time nature, whatever compels us, has done this. Like, we once believed that everything was flat, the world was flat, like that was like, the idea of it being an orb was absurd. People on the bottom would have fallen off, whatever. And we once believed that the world is completely motionless because it feels completely motionless. I mean, who would suspect that we're like revolving around this sun, this star, at over 60,000 miles per hour? I mean, that's, but that's the reality. So like, nature, God, whatever, the universe likes to deceive us. And so like, it's deceived us about who we are as people. Now, I'm pretty sure we're going to get this right, because it is important to our future. Between like climate change and all, the free will belief encourages conflict, hostility, competition, blaming, self-blame. And all this stuff is, our future is so challenging. We won't afford, we won't be able to afford the luxury of being distracted by blaming and self-blame and all. We've got so much to do, and so to the extent we overcome this illusion, facing the future is going to be much more civilized, humane, and pleasant for everyone. All right, so let's get on with the show. So, different definitions of free will, different refutations. The first definition of free will is that what we think, say, feel, do, whatever, all this stuff is up to us. Nothing that's not in our control is making us do any of what we do. Okay? It doesn't take too much reflection to understand that that there are some things that aren't in our control that are making us do what we do. The easiest way to understand it, because it's the most fundamental, is this process of causality. Everything has a cause. Nothing can happen that is uncaused. Everything is caused. Now, some people might say, well, how do you know everything is caused? I mean, like, do you know the causes of everything you think, say, do, and will? And actually, the answer to that is actually yes. I mean, we do know the causes, and the idea is like, cause like, here's the idea is like, the universe. Let's say you start 13.7 billion years ago with the Big Bang. The universe at its first moment was the complete cause, of the universe at the second moment. The reason we know that is like there was nothing else but the universe to cause the second moment of its existence. And that second state of the universe at its second state, was the complete cause of the universe at the next moment, its third state. And what's happening is like, with each state, the particles are just moving outward, essentially. Momentum is propelling them out, and then other forces are like coming into play. But whatever, the idea is like, our universe evolves moment by moment, state by state, from the Big Bang to today. So now if we want to go backwards, what's the cause of anything you do, anything you think, say, feel, whatever? It's the state of the universe at the prior moment. Okay, and what's the cause of that? It's the state of the universe at the moment before that. So that's that's the clearest, most comprehensive, most general way of understanding that we don't have a free will, that what we do is not really up to us. Okay, because we can't control that causality. We can't control how the Big Bang evolved, how the universe evolved. Okay, and I'm going to go through other. There's another. I might as well say it now, and I can explain it more in detail later. But the other reason that our choices aren't really up to us, because when we say us, we mean our conscious mind. We don't mean those parts of us over which we can't control and we're not even aware. Like our conscious mind, by definition, is not either aware of or nor can it control our unconscious. Okay, because that's just the way it is. So I'll explain that in more detail later. Excuse me. Okay, another definition of free will is like free will means that we are fundamentally morally responsible for what we do, what we think, what we say, everything. And a good way to understand why we're not fundamentally responsible is to understand we didn't create ourselves. We did not create ourselves. We did not give ourselves the genes we have. We did not create our physiology, our drives, our biology and all. And so how does this refute free will? Let's say, in terms of moral responsibility, let's say you were like this computer scientist, engineer, and you constructed a robot, okay? And, for this example, we're going to hypothetically give this robot free will. I mean, even a robot couldn't have free will, really, but in this example, the robot has free will, all right? So you create this robot, with free will, and he escapes from the lab, goes out into a city and just wreaks havoc. I don't know what he does. He does a lot of crimes or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, so the robot is apprehended, okay? And then the police, the authorities discover that you are the creator of that robot, okay? So you're both, maybe not both of you, but certainly you're in front of a judge, because you're being tried for the crimes that the robot you created committed. Now, can you imagine yourself saying to the judge, you can't blame me, judge, because I created this robot. When I created this robot, I gave the robot free will. The robot can do anything it wants to do. So whatever he did, you can't blame me. You got to blame the robot. You think the judge is going to buy that? No, the judge is going to say, listen, I understand that the robot has free will, but you created the robot, okay? If you hadn't created the robot and given the robot free will, the robot wouldn't have ever done what he did, wouldn't have broken all those laws. So, in life, in reality, we are the robots, and God is the scientist, God is the computer engineer who created us. So just as we thank God when he has us do good things and have good feelings and be good and all that stuff, it stands to reason when we don't, he's responsible too. Okay, moral responsibility. So again, because we're not fundamental, because we didn't create ourselves, we're really not fundamentally responsible for anything we do. And that's not to say we don't quote-unquote hold ourselves responsible pragmatically, because something that's very important to remember is understanding that nobody has a free will is good, because it allows you to be compassionate toward others and toward yourself, to not be so judgmental, but it's not a license to do whatever you want, okay? You can't say to yourself or to others, I don't have a free will, so you can't blame me for anything. You can't do that because, it doesn't work that way. I mean, actions have consequences. If you do things that are hurtful, then other people are going to have to respond. Now, naturally, when we respond, we'll respond more kindly, with more understanding. But again, you can't use the excuse that we don't have a free will to do whatever you want, because ultimately you find out pretty quickly that nature and other people will have to, kind of like impose an order, a rule of law, a kind of a justice, albeit hopefully more kindly if they understand that nobody has a free will, but nonetheless, you just can't be absolved of everything so easily like that. All right, another definition. This is from Kant and I think Hegel or Hume. They say that like free will is having the will. We don't have free will all the time, but when we have the will that we want, then we have free will. In other words, like if I want to be happy right now and I'm happy, then that's my free will, okay? But that doesn't work, and I'll tell you why that doesn't work. It's like they're saying that like, we have a free will when we have the will we want. The problem with that is like having the will we want is not up to us. If I decided to be happy a few moments ago, to feel happy, there's a reason for that. There's a cause, and we go back to that first, definition. Choices are up to us, and the refutation that causality prevents it. So causality prevents me from having the wants that I want. We don't control our desires. Like, if you like certain foods, it's not your choice. You like them. That's how you are. That's who you are. If you like certain movies, certain books, certain music, certain things, you don't decide what you like and don't like. Sometimes again you can, like, for example, let's say let's say you don't really like opera, but then all of a sudden you find yourself working in an opera house. You're an usher or something, and you say, whoa, I better start appreciating this, or, whatever. So in cases like that, yes, we can, to a certain extent, revise or change certain kinds of our desires, our appreciations and all. But that takes time. And again, even when we do that, when we succeed at that, it's really not up to us, because there's a causality that explains that too. Okay. Here's another definition by Kant. Kant, he was like supposed to be this brilliant guy, but I mean, for him to not understand, because like he understood that everything has a cause and that's why free will is impossible, but he couldn't accept it. And like a philosopher especially should be good at overriding, desire motivated reasoning, reasoning conclusions based on desire. He felt he wanted to have a free will. He felt the free will is necessary. So here's his other definition. Free will, we don't have free will all the time, but we have free will when we make virtuous decisions based on enlightened reasoning. Okay, and I'm not sure these his words. These are the words of this guy Baumeister that was defending his position in a paper. Virtuous decisions based on enlightened reasoning. All right, one. A virtuous decision based on deciding enlightened reasoning is no different from any other decision. I mean, if it's enlightened reasoning, we don't get to choose whether we're enlightened or not. If we were born to a certain family in a certain town in a certain era, because like think about this, like so by his definition, a caveman, a Neanderthal couldn't have a free will because there was no enlightenment back then. I don't know, but like you would have to have enlightened reason. And again, the more fundamental reason why this definition is easily refuted is because, like, again, a decision, whether you want to define it as virtuous, as enlightened, however you want to define it, it has causes. And the other part I'm going to get to last, because I'm going to spend a bit more time on it, is that these decisions occur in our unconscious. So they're not accessible to our conscious mind. Okay. Now, some philosophers, psychologists understand that causality, determinism, the fact that everything has a cause makes free will completely impossible. Okay, so then they resort to what's kind of like a semantic semantic strategy, they frame the question in the way that makes you think that, oh yeah, this is different, but it's not. Okay, what they say is like, I have a free will if I could have done otherwise, like before, instead of coming here to do this show, because my co-host isn't here today, I could have called in, I could have said, I listen, I can't make it, my co-host isn't, coming, whatever, and I'm gonna cancel whatever. Okay. Theoretically I could have done that. Theoretically, but like, why couldn't we have done otherwise? Why couldn't I have done otherwise? Because like there's only one universal chain of cause and effect. In other words, like the state of the universe at the time that decision would have been made would have determined that decision, and the state of the universe before that would have determined that. So causality still applies to a decision that I could have theoretically done otherwise. So again, like we really couldn't have done otherwise. In order to be able to have done otherwise, a few conditions would have to be met. One, we would have to be living in a different universe with different causal history. The universe would have to have evolved in a different way that would have explained the different decision we would have made. Another condition would have been that we would have had to have been different people, because again, our conditioning, our experiences, our memories, our biology, all these things explain who we are and how or why we decide what we decide. And there's a third one I forget, but just good enough, right? We couldn't have done otherwise, okay? Because again, there's only one causal history. Okay, another definition of free will is that like some people say like, well, it doesn't matter if it's like you're unconscious that's choosing for you. You're the one who made the decision, so because you made it, then you're like morally responsible. You have a free will because you made it. Okay, this definition is a little scary, because that's like, let's say like you're someplace and somebody spikes your drink, with some kind of like chemical agent, some kind of drug or something, and then and you have no knowledge of it, right? And then like you go out and like commit some crimes or do something, right, or whatever. Like no judge or jury in their right mind with any sense of justice or jurisprudence or anything would hold you responsible for your actions, okay? Because like surely you did them, but they weren't under your control, so that's the key point here. Like it doesn't matter that we make the decisions. It's like, the question is whether we are making these decisions completely free of factors, of principles over which we have no control. And so again, because all of our decisions have causes and they have causes, whatever, we don't have free will. Okay, the last definition that I'm going to explain and refute, this will take a little time, is the idea that like, free will is that we make conscious decisions. Okay, so let's see if I can explain this. I explained it a bit in the last show. Okay, consciousness is awareness. To be conscious is to be aware. What is awareness? Like right now I'm aware of the camera, I'm aware of the one, I'm aware of the lights, I'm aware of myself thinking and talking and moving. You're aware of listening to me and having thoughts about what I'm saying, okay? That's consciousness. To be conscious is to be aware. Now, to be conscious is not to decide. Consciousness is not a decision-making mechanism. Consciousness is limited to awareness. Okay, that's one premise. Another thing, like, let's say we make a decision. Okay, again, remember, consciousness is only awareness, and the other thing about consciousness, it's kind of like a stream, okay? It's like right now I'm aware of the number one, I'm aware of this TV screen, I'm aware of the cameras, and like it flows. It's not like with a movie where like you see different frames, like in a motion picture, whatever. Consciousness flows, and it's momentary. Okay, what I'm conscious, When I'm conscious of what I'm conscious of right now, which is like trying to say what I'm saying and looking at the camera, there's all these memories, all this data that's that is in my mind, but I'm not conscious of it. Okay? Why am I not conscious of it? All right. Since the days of hypnotism, psychologists, neuroscientists, doctors have understood that there's a part of our mind that they call the unconscious because it is below the level of conscious awareness. Right now, you know so much stuff. You have so many memories, you have so much knowledge that you're not consciously aware of as you're listening to me, okay? You know it's in there, okay, because that's, but you can't consciously access it, okay? Because again, it's if all this data, these memories, this information is in a part of your mind that you're not conscious of, you clearly can't access the information. So what's happening? What's happening when we make a decision? Okay, think about it. Let's say I make a decision about what to say next. Okay, and I as I'm saying this, I don't know what I'm going to say next. I'm trying to figure this out. Okay, all these words that I'm using to say what I'm saying next and what I'm saying now, whatever, they're not stored in my conscious mind, again, because consciousness is not a data storage mechanism. Consciousness is simply awareness. All these words and concepts and ways of saying them and all that are expressing themselves as I say this stuff are in my unconscious. Because, again, I wasn't consciously aware of all this stuff before I said them. I don't know where they came from. They came from my unconscious. So the idea is that because all this stuff is in the unconscious, when I make a decision, when I'm trying to explain this, there are reasons for why I'm trying to explain this. There are principles that guide why I'm trying to explain this. In other words, there are principles and processes by which decisions take place. If there weren't, our decisions would be capricious, arbitrary, and we couldn't ascribe them to a free will because that's not what free will means. Free will means that we would be making purposeful decisions that are reasoned or for a reason. We could take credit for them. We would be responsible for them fundamentally. All right, so here's the thing. So you've got all the data, the language, the concepts, the memories, the reasons, whatever, for all the decision in a part of my mind that I can't access arbitrarily, consciously, because, that's why they call it the unconscious. And if you've got all the data in the unconscious, the principles and processes by which we decide are also the unconscious. It's like when you make a decision, you're not aware of, I made this decision because because of this and that, whatever. This stuff, when we decide, sometimes the unconscious makes us aware of this stuff, but ordinarily we're not. So the basic principle is if the data for decisions and the principles and processes by which we make decisions are in the unconscious, that means the decisions must be made by the unconscious. So everything you decide, everything you think, what happens, our mind is really the unconscious. Our mind is, most fundamentally the unconscious. And what happens is as it processes an information, and the cool thing about our unconscious is consciousness is kind of linear. We can only think of one thing at a time and all, or at most 2 or 3 things we can only be conscious of at a time. But our unconscious can be aware, because our unconscious is aware of itself in a certain sense, of many things at a time. So you have the unconscious basically, sifting through its database of memories, principles, reasons, precepts and all this, making decisions, and then it makes us conscious, aware of what it decided. Okay? Okay. So all right, so basically we don't consciously decide anything. We consciously become aware of what the unconscious decided for us, because the unconscious is where all our stuff resides and where we decide. Okay. Commercial time. All right. because I've explained this well enough, I think. All right. Now this show's on every Thursday here in White Plains, 9 o'clock on Thursday nights, and it's also rebroadcast on Wednesdays at 7:30. And like we have a live call-in show produced by my co-host Enel, who's not here today, but will be here hopefully soon sometime. And we do this every Wednesday at 11 p.m. in Manhattan on Manhattan's Neighborhood Network, channel 56 on Time Warner. Okay, and it's a half-hour show when we take calls. And it's called No Free Will, and so like over the winter we're taping live shows every 2 or 3 weeks. My producer doesn't want to tape anymore. But during the weeks where we're not live in Manhattan, we show one of these episodes. All right, so this show's there. If you want to like access all these past episodes of these shows, one, if you have iTunes, they're all uploaded to iTunes in MP3 format. But just log on to my website at causalconsciousness.com, exploring the illusion of free will. You can Google it. That's probably the easiest way to find it, because like a lot of times I type out consciousness, and then it's a hard word to type out a lot of times. So, but it's causalconsciousness, one word.com, and there you'll have like again all these episodes and some other information to just help you explain, understand why we wouldn't have free will. All right. That is all we have time for today. Again, in the future, I'm going to keep explaining this. You know why I'm going to keep explaining this? Because I have no choice. I'm absolutely compelled to do this. It's not up to me. If it were up to me, I might do this. I don't know, but I might do other things. Who knows? But so anyway, this is episode number 113th, and we're going to keep doing more and more of these episodes until everybody gets it right. Okay, this is George Ortega for Exploring the Illusion of Free Will, saying, think about this, like nothing, absolutely nothing is up to us. Everything is predetermined by factors outside of our control. I'll see you next time.